Welcome to Get Savvy, the podcast for business owners who want to claim back their time through the power of delegation, streamlining, and productivity. I am your host, Teesha, here with my co-host, Jo, and today we have an episode for you, Closet Micromanagers.
Yes, you micromanagers if you don't think that you're a micromanager, or if you are having trouble with your team members feeling like they're being micromanaged
Mm,
and getting frustrated with you.
Yes, so we are going to talk about this in the context of mainly delegating to virtual assistants, but it will apply to those of you with teams as well. So we're going to dive in and talk about what micromanagement is. And like we say, you might not even be aware that it's something that you're doing. Often it is something that just sort of creeps in, especially if you yourself are a bit stressed out and you're just starting to want to control things, make sure that they run smoothly, especially, when it's your baby, when it's your business, you want to make sure that it's all going well.
hmm Yeah, and you might be also maybe new to having team members, and so it
Mm.
can be very easy to slip into micromanagement without even realizing it, like Tisha says.
Yeah. So typically, micromanagement will look like a manager that, yeah, just has a really strong desire to oversee things. It may be a specific task or project, it may be all the time, but it will almost always frustrate your team members or your virtual assistant because it takes away their autonomy. It takes away them feeling trusted. It
hmm
takes away their decision making abilities, and they will stop taking ownership for their work, and they will actually just stop trying to problem solve and make those decisions because they know that you're going to jump in at any given time.
hmm Yes. And that doubt, that, like, self-doubt that creeps in and, like,
Mm.
feeling not trusted
Yeah.
really erodes how confident you feel in yourself, how happy you are in your work,
Yeah.
because trust like, everything is built on trust in this relationship with you and your team member.
Yeah. And so it will actually swing both ways. If you're not trusting them, then they're going to stop trusting you
Mm,
in a weird way as well. And
mm,
yes, you may need to be kept in the loop about projects that are happening in your business. We're not saying that you have to have a complete hands off approach about it, but it doesn't mean that you need to be there for every single second, every single update. And if you feel like you're constantly communicating with your team about these projects going on, you have your finger in 100 different pies, then you probably do need to take a little step back and just try and have some oversight, see if you are actually slipping into that micromanagement. And, if you're really busy yourself as well, like we say, you may not be aware that you're doing it and you've actually just ended up there unintentionally.
Yeah, if you are controlling every single detail inside a project, and maybe your team member comes to you and says, "Oh, this is what I'm working on, and this is what," or you're asking, they're probably not coming to you because you're asking them all the time. Like, if you're coming to them and asking them for all of the details about what they're doing, and then maybe they've like decided on something and you're like changing every single
Mhm.
decision that they make,
Yeah.
like, that is absolute micromanagement, and that is not going to end well.
Yeah, definitely. And we know as well, you're not the villain. Like we say, it's often something you don't realize that you're doing. And also, there are reasons that people do this. So, we'll
Mm.
go through some of the reasons that as a business owner, you might be micromanaging those tasks. And one of those big ones is that, like I mentioned before, that loss of control in other areas. I can talk from personal experience actually that I start getting really stressed out when other areas of my life are feeling a little bit out of control. And this can be as simple as my house feeling messy and like I need to clean it. And then so that feels out of my control unless I can go and quickly clean my house. And then I need to start looking in other places on how can I gain back some control. And so I may touch base with people in the team and ask for updates on things I don't actually need updates on. But then on the flip side, I hate being managed like that myself. And if people are asking me 100 questions, then I start getting really frustrated. But
Mhm.
yeah, for me, I that can start to slip in if if I've lost control in other areas.
Mm. So, yeah, how out of control do you feel right now? And if you are feeling out of control or things are happening in your life that you don't have any control over, then it may be time to have a look at like what are you doing inside your business that could be deemed micromanaging? Are your team getting frustrated with you? Is there that kind of like that grating or that like, are you getting frustrated and are they
Mhm.
getting frustrated? And like conversations become really like kind of abrupt and you just kind of know
Yes.
that the atmosphere isn't right.
Yeah.
That is probably likely to you micromanaging your team members.
Mhm. Especially if you've got those really bubbly team members that, yeah, they're usually happy and
Mm,
they'll give you a big long answer and you've asked them a question and they just come back with one word. You're probably
mm.
micromanaging them.
Yeah.
And it may be something that you've actually brought across from a previous workplace. If you
Mm,
have been a manager before of people, it may just be a style that a previous workplace is sort of ingrained into you and you don't even know that you're doing it. And it's just your management style that you are very hands on. And yeah, you just don't know anything else. So
mm,
could be another reason. And another reason may be lack of trust, which we hope that this is not the reason that you would be doing that because you don't trust your team. But potentially, if it's new team members that you haven't worked with before, you don't know what their work standards are you worried that they may not do the task perfectly like you know you would, then again, that may be that little lack of trust slipping in there.
mm. Another common one is also perfectionism, like your fear of things not being done right. And maybe you feel like you could do the task better, quicker, or more efficiently.
Yeah.
And this comes down to like, yes, your team are not going to be able to do the things like you would,
Yeah.
perfectly like you would, or more efficiently than you would on in the outset.
Yeah.
And this is where this, the like whole concept of delegating and delegating properly
Yes.
comes into play because yeah, this when you have that perfectionism or fear of things not being done right, you tend to like delegate really poorly as well because you become really hands-on
Mm.
and you like watching over that person and like having input into every single part of the process when actually if you took a step back and you gave your team member the why
Mm.
they need to do this, what the outcome is that you would really love to have, a bit of context
Yeah.
and all the details that they need. The actual how they do that task to get you the outcome that you want is not actually that relevant because they'll have a style, they'll have some experience, they'll have a way of doing things that works for them.
Yeah.
So it's important to really look at like what is the outcome that you want and have you given that person the information that they need and then let them give them that space, allow
Yeah.
them to do that task and open have that open communication where like, "Hey, if you need anything or need any help, let me know. I'd love an update from you, like, in a couple of days. Let me know how you're going."
Yeah. And they will. We've spoken about it before as well. There is a high likelihood that whoever is completing that task for you for the first time, they're not going to get 100% perfect on the first go, but you
Mm,
need to give them a chance to prove themselves and also to improve. So, yeah, there are ways to do this, and we're going to go through the ways on how you can actually stop micromanaging. But firstly, why is it important to actually stop micromanaging and really show your team that you trust them or your virtual assistant that you trust them? And going back to the personality styles, like I was talking about, my personality could tend to potentially micromanage if I was stressed in other areas. Some personalities are going to be more likely to do that. And then some personalities are also going to need slightly more management. And I probably wouldn't say prefer a micromanagement style. I don't think micromanagement is
Preferred by anyone.
yeah, probably not the preferred method by anyone, but there will be team members or virtual assistants that may have a personality that need a little bit more support
Mm,
compared to some others that will just sort of hit the ground running and actually not really want to be checked in with that often. So
mm,
you do need to take into account the personalities again that you're working with as well.
mm. Yeah.
But morale in general is probably one of the biggest reasons to trust your team because like we mentioned earlier, if you trust them, they're going to trust you back. They're going to feel valued. They're going to feel like their opinion is heard. They're going to feel like they have space to problem solve and, yeah, that they are trusted by you. And who doesn't want to feel like that in a workplace?
Mhm,
It's really, really important to create that mutual respect.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone wants to feel like they are a valued part of the team
Mhm.
and that the manager, you,
Mm.
trust them.
Yeah.
It also helps them develop too. So by not micromanaging, they actually can develop their skills. They have the like safety of
Mm.
knowing that they can make some mistakes, they can problem solve some things themselves, and it all helps with that growth and development of your team member.
Mm.
It also saves you from like spending so much time answering questions constantly or asking them questions constantly. Like you better placed to be using your time
Yeah.
for other things rather than micromanaging your team.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, you're proving to them that you are going to allow that time wasting and that they can come to you all the time rather than just thinking for themselves or
Mm,
Googling something. They're just going to default to you if you
mm.
jump in every 2 seconds
Yeah.
anyway.
Because they assume that you're going to jump in
Yeah.
and, like, change what they've decided that they're gonna do or, have your opinions the only ones that kinda matter in
Yep.
whatever that they're working on, and so, of course, they're gonna ask you questions constantly because otherwise,
Mm.
if they don't ask the questions and they do something that they think is gonna be right and then it's not, you're gonna make them change it, and so they're just gonna default to asking you every single thing because it's like frustrating for them and they just want to do what
Mm.
you want to do because you're going to change it anyway.
Yeah. Frustrating and almost maybe they're living in fear that you're going to jump in and
Yeah.
undermine them. So
Hmm.
yeah, that will just become the normal behavior for them.
Yep.
And in turn, that also, or not doing that, will help increase productivity, not just for your team member, but you not answering questions
Hmm.
every 2 seconds or being interrupted while you're trying to do something else. And they can just actually get on with their jobs and
Hmm.
everyone wins.
Yep.
So, some tips for actually building that trust and starting to avoid this micromanagement style that we've gotten into.
Hmm.
So, Joe, you touched on this before, providing proper instructions when you are delegating, providing some proper training up front.
Mm. Yeah, I have just hired my own full time virtual assistant working just for me over in my other business. And like, I have been in this for the last 3 weeks, feeling very like even more overwhelmed
Mhm.
because I know that putting in the time now to provide the proper training and clear instructions is going to pay dividends down the track. This is a long-term kind of strategy that you need to think about this, like having team members, delegating out tasks, maybe hiring a VA. It's a long-term strategy. So it's going to take some time and effort in the beginning because you need to give all of that context. You need to let people know why you're doing this or what happens if you get to this point and something changes in this task, then what do you need to do?
Yeah.
What are the other things surrounding this task that kind of rely on this task or project? So giving them all of that background and context can feel frustrating because especially for my personality style, it was very like, let's get stuff done like quickly as fast as possible. But I know that it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
So I'm like really forcing myself to give video instructions, provide the tools to actually keep track of the tasks really well,
Yeah.
have a place where all the instructions are located and searchable so that they can find the information that they need.
Hmm.
We can't like emphasize this enough. This is not micromanaging because it seems like kind of, but how is this not the same as micromanaging, But it's providing all the information up front so that that person is armed with what they need to
Yeah.
then get on and do the task or do the project.
Hmm. And
Clear instructions are so important.
yeah. And that doesn't mean, I think I mentioned it before, it doesn't mean they're not gonna come and ask you questions anyway.
Mm,
When you provide them that resource and they can, especially if it's, like you say, step-by-step instructions, video or written form, then they can actually go back and review that again, see if they can answer their own question, and then come to you. And like we've said, they may not get it perfect the first time, so you do need to allow that space for them to learn and get it right themselves, and correct any mistakes with empathy and knowing that that's going to happen. And then the next time they can do it better. And each time they do it, they'll get better, they'll get faster. And it is a process. And so that if
mm,
you set them up for success in that first instance with the instructions, then it's going to be a lot easier and you won't have to micromanage later down the track.
mm. And a pro tip is that if you have something that you want to kind of talk through with your team member and kind of show them around what to do, or give them a whole bunch of context, then do a Zoom meeting with them and record it.
Hmm.
And then you've got that they can go back to if need be, or put it into whatever place you store your instructions.
Absolutely. The key with this, and like many things, is going to be regular communication and feedback, and that is going to be good and bad feedback. So if they do make a mistake, you do still tell them. You don't go
Mm.
behind their back and correct it for them so that it's all magically been fixed and they have no idea that they've made a mistake, but oh, it
Mm,
was just quicker for you to do it. Again, that's going to undermine them and they're not going to learn. So
mhm,
you do need to give them, or update them when they have done something wrong, and whether you jump on Zoom and do it together to fix it or give them instructions on how to fix it next time, still do that. And also, when they have done a good job, then definitely give them praise as well.
mm. Yeah. And something else too is that like if you feel like, "Oh, I'm just not getting the like information back from them that I need. I don't know if they have got it under control or that this is going well or they're even working on it or that they're going to meet the deadline," and you have that fear of like,
Mm,
is this going to work out? Then just have that conversation with them and say, "Hey, I'm feeling like I'm not in the loop. I would love to get some more regular updates. Like, could you update me at this time and this time?"
mhm.
Rather than constantly like going and asking for updates, actually agree a timeline with them where they are
Yeah.
going to provide you an update. And then they know when they update you, you know when the update's coming, and you don't have to wonder and worry. Like if you're trying to step back from micromanaging, it's not about like never having the information. It's just
Yeah.
like having that communication open where you're saying, hey, this is what I need. This is how I'm feeling. Would love more regular updates from you.
Mhm. Yeah, those expectations. And
Mm,
and again, if you can have them up front and let them know in the beginning if
mm,
possible, then that's best. But, occasionally we have to call ourselves out and admit where we're at halfway through. And honestly, as well, if you are honest with them, then they're going to be a bit more empathetic back, knowing what you're trying to do and trying to
mm,
not micromanage, and they're going to want to help you.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's this kind of fear, as someone who's
Mm.
managing team members that you have to be like
Perfect.
yeah, that you have to be perfect yourself and, like, you could never be vulnerable
Mm.
because, like, I don't know what that fear's about, but
No.
if you are vulnerable with them and let them know, "Hey, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I don't want to micromanage you, but I know that I probably got that tendency. So if you notice me micromanaging you, please let me know so that I can stop doing that because I want you to be successful in your role. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel like I trust you. So that's what I need from you. So please just let me know." Then you're just opening that communication and that team member is going to respect you so
Yep.
much
Yep.
for actually letting them know how you feel.
Yep. Definitely. I mean, my default management style is not micromanagement. I'm usually quite hands off, but when I first went into the general manager role, I had huge imposter syndrome. And so there was this weird complex that I had that I did have to be perfect in my role.
Mm,
And so I didn't really want to be vulnerable because I wanted to be seen from the outside as a good leader.
yeah.
And so that's probably quite common out there, especially, yeah, in those leadership management roles that people are not wanting to let the walls down and
Mm,
let people see who they really are. But it will do you so much good to let those walls down, let your team or your virtual assistant see you as a human and actually be able to connect with you because,
mm,
again, you're just going to build that trust with them. They will be able to feel comfortable coming to you when they're struggling as well, or if they
mm.
can't interpret your instructions or like that, they're just going to speak up more if they feel that there is an open floor to do that if you have done it first.
Yeah, you're role modeling that like vulnerable, open behavior, being a real person, a real human.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. And trusting your whoever you're delegating to, virtual assistant or team member, trusting them, knowing that they're capable, knowing that you hired them for a reason and that they are the experts. I know for me, I when I went into this role again, I came from a creative background. I wasn't a bookkeeper, didn't have any knowledge in the bookkeeping side of things, and I was managing bookkeeping team members. And so I just had to trust that they were the experts because I couldn't jump in and tell them they were doing it wrong because I genuinely didn't know.
yeah.
So, yeah, knowing that you've hired them, sorry, for a reason in those roles because they're good at
Mm,
what they do.
yeah. And realizing that not everyone is perfect. So if you notice that you start slipping into
Yep.
micromanagement, just let your team member know, hey, sorry, I've just realized that I've been micromanaging you. That's not cool. I don't want to do that. So, like, please call me out if I start
Yeah.
to do that again, and I'm going to do better. This is what I need from you. This is why I'm feeling like I'm micromanaging. Like, can you do this to help me out?
Yep. Absolutely. So, like everything, communication is key. So that is it for this episode of Get Savvy. We hope you enjoyed it and you can stop your micromanaging ways. If you have enjoyed this episode or any episode, then please leave us a review. We'd really, really love to see what you have to say. And don't forget to subscribe to the Get Savvy podcast as well.